Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video, I'll be discussing my thoughts on episode 11 of the anime series, Rokka no Yuusha, and this was just goosebumps-inducing. I'm totally, amped up. Just got done watching it, and, we are right in the thick of it from the start of this episode, picking up right where we left off. Now, Shtania is bloodthirsty as hell. She's cracked. She's psycho. She wants to kill Adlet. And as much as she wants to kill him, she's also thanking him for the experience, of being on this adventure, for going out and experiencing the fear of battle with the fiends and being able to become somewhat more worldly. She's very unworldly in the fact that she's had to live this very stuffy, stoic life in her position as a princess. And she can't get out. She can't make friends and all this kind of stuff. And a lot of people, and myself included, thinking along the lines of if she were to be proven the fake, the impetus, the drive behind her wanting to escape was probably what saw her making that decision, stealing off with Adlet in the middle of the night, not sticking around to do all the formal paper signing and getting the okay from the king and all that kind of stuff. She just wanted out of there, and she took that, availability basically by the reins to escape for a little while. And people have said, this proves her to be the fake, because maybe she was faking, that symbol, the mark of the Braves of the Six Flowers, to get out of there. Adlet was really chosen, and she just sort of stole along with him because she needed to get out of there and everything like that. And she's very inexperienced. And I love that they acknowledge this in her dialogue. She's thanking him for this. Almost, I have to perceive it as like a slap in the face of anyone who's thinking of her being the fake. I'm not saying it's, beyond a shadow of a doubt. There still isn't room for that to be the case, for her to be the fake. But I feel like it's almost like, haha, no, it's not. It's not her. With the way they're acknowledging that whole estimation of her character. And it's absolutely just fascinating. The chase ensues with Adlet and Flamey working alongside each other. Flamey actually just really trying to help him and screaming at him, run, and all this kind of stuff. She's becoming a heroine of her own right. And of course, they do get split up, and she's going after Goldolf and Mora, and she has her ass handed to her, basically, because these two, I guess you could say, foes among the Six Braves, they are much tougher than she is for all of her skills. And you have Nashtania just following Adlet through the woods, and there's this one brief moment where he's talking about after he's been getting sliced up and everything by her blade powers, which also I have to say is interesting that she overtaxes it at one point. She's sort of over-concentrating all of her efforts on calling these blades out of thin air, and they all start scattering and sort of disintegrating and everything like that. So we see that she does have limits to her abilities, but there's a point where Adlet's talking about, I should have realized before, it's pretty cold here. And I actually recalled back to when they first entered this area. I remembered the scene they end up showing in the flashback where he's commenting how humid it is, how hot it is, with he and Flamey when they're first arriving. And I'm like, that's kind of strange, for it to be suddenly so cold, and there's the fog. And then, of course, Adlet's sort of theory, he has modified his theory from a few episodes ago, the episode that left me really disgruntled, because Flamey, when he had explained his theory to Flamey, she just broke it down step by step and said, no, there's no truth to it. Well, there is some truth to it, but it's, played out a little differently than he had assumed, and he's been working on it this whole time. He's been trying to buy time to figure it out, and it's intriguing to me that Ryota, this Saint of the Sun, how integral that character has become. But she isn't somebody in league with the fake air quotes, somebody who is manipulating behind the scenes. She was manipulated subsequently, and the proof is in the pudding with the temperature. He goes on to explain after they finally cornered him and caught him, and you have Nashtania about to literally slaughter him. Goldolf, she's ordering Goldolf to do it, and Mora's doing the same thing. And then Hans and Chimo come, calling from off in the distance. And you just see that, look of shock and disdain and disgust in Nashtania's own face. She's looking at Mora. Everyone's looking at Mora, even Goldolf. They're like, why'd you lie? Are you sure you're not the fake? I mean, they start to suspect her. And at this point, I find myself with the, explanation of how the fog was created in the first place, over sort of, creating this area, overtaking this area with an overabundance of heat and humidity to the point where people are noticing it when they first arrive. And I feel like whomever in this group is the fake by the end of this discussion, it's not a fake that is in league with the demon god. I think all of this stuff that was going on in the background to fake out the fog, to and get somebody inside the temple and all that kind of stuff, I almost have this feeling like it's not going to be any of this group. That was all machinations by fiends for the purposes of the demon god. And I feel like whomever the fake is going to end up being, it's not going to be somebody who's in the group. At least that's my speculation at the moment, because that whole concept of the fiends were, sort of holding Ryota hostage and utilizing her power to make it so in overabundance, very hot in this area. Then they off her, as Adlet suggests, and instantly the whole place starts becoming colder and the fog is created. And so they fake a fog barrier. Then when they're in the temple, somebody activates it. They all had false information as to how to activate it. And it goes back to that guy at the temple, that Adlet and Flamey had met, and we find out subsequently Goldoff and Nashtania had also met and had been instructed how to effectively turn on this phantasmal barrier, but they were all lied to. And I gotta suspect, I feel like all of these characters, they have their good traits and their bad traits, and I'm starting to feel like none of them is actually the fake as working in partnership with evil, with the demon god. I feel like maybe one of them is not a genuine chosen brave, for sure. I mean, one of them has to be, but I'm much more leaning by the end of this, the idea that they've been manipulated from the word go. They needed somebody to open the temple that was sort of outside the chosen six. Who opened that temple? Who got them inside? Adlet. And he's the one who is using scientific explanations, not just the powers and the abilities of the saints and the magic and the demons and all this kind of stuff. He's using his brain. He's trying to piece it together. He's trying to, apply logic, kind of a Sherlock Holmes approach. With all of the evidence he has, it seems like he has been the most manipulated. They need somebody to get them in. He got them in. Well, then all of a sudden they need to be rid of him, because he could potentially uncover the truth of the entire matter, because he thinks outside the box. He accused Mora of not thinking outside the box. He said whoever orchestrated this is thinking outside the box. He's the only one of this group who does that. He's the only one of this group who has been honorable to the last. Everyone else is talking about, well, we have to kill whomever we suspect. Forget questioning him. I mean, this is the first time we see Goldoff actually suggesting that. Let's get information out of him before we kill him. And Morta's like, no. I feel like their hearts are all in the right place. They, they're very much afraid of there being a fake amongst them. And I think they've all been misdirected to assume whomever the fake is, much like we, the viewer, is in league with the demon god. And I think that there's just one person there who is almost like the MacGyver, of the scenario. That's Adlet. And he has been used to certain ends, And the whole point of this is to trap them there, is to keep them from being able to intervene, from being able to go up against the demon god. That's how I'm left with this. The weather was manipulated. They created a fake fog barrier using this Sun Saint Ryota's power. They offed her as soon as, they needed to, when the doors were open, so they could make everyone assume that the barrier had been activated. They all had false information as to how to activate it, and somebody got inside and did it. And who's to say this cat who told them the entire way to activate it, how do we know he wasn't sort of a, fiend in disguise? One of these transmorphers, or whatever you want to call it, who can change their form. Lead them there, get in there. We don't know the lengths to which their, capabilities of taking on different forms, how far that goes. How do we know this guy didn't sneak in and, turn himself into a rock in the corner when everyone goes chasing after Flamey at first, and Adlet and everything sneaks back out? The whole purpose, it seems, by the end of this, was to keep them all at odds, to keep them all antagonistic, to keep them all suspecting someone, from Flamey to Adlet to Hans, back to Adlet again, back to Flamey again, all this kind of stuff, just to make sure they never make it out of this thing alive, this trap. And I'm really at the end, we end with this cliffhanger after all of this is revealed to us. And the point is proved when they run across this giant fiend that is like 3 times the size of any of the other ones they encountered. And there is Ryota's body encased within kind of the, what Han does to Luke on Hoth in Empire Strikes Back, shove him in the belly, shove her in the belly in this case. And Hans pulls her out. Mora confirms it's her. All of these characters, I don't think they're evil. I now think none of them is actually evil. None of them is actually, I think they are all genuine braves, put it that way. But they make a point of cutting Adlet off when he's about to reveal the fake. I think he's the fake. I think going back to one of my earliest theories, looking at him, I think he was fooled into believing he was legitimately chosen. Whether by, Nashtania or some otherworldly hands, maybe Nashtania's impetus, all that being revealed, her lack of having experience. Maybe this is because she wanted out. And she didn't want to have to go with stuffy old Goldov. She didn't want to have to go with the guards that would probably, the procession that would be going with her. She was, won over by Adlet. She wanted to go with him. Somebody who was already worldly enough, had traveled, had adventures, was a badass. From the get-go, we had Adlet interrupt that whole fight and everything like that. And he gets jailed and imprisoned. And she loves him from the word go, because he's a rebel. He's going against everything she knows. I think she was genuinely chosen, and rather than go with the stuffy, acclimatized to the kingdom, to the procession, to the official formality, all of that stuff, I think she snuck off with him. They stole away in the middle of the night because she needed to be with somebody who would give her the experiences that she longed for, the adventure, the worldliness, all of these things. And I think she fooled him into thinking he was the legit one. And when this was already a thing, you have whomever is working with the demon god, whoever is trying to trap them and manipulate them all, utilizing that aspect. Well, hey, we got this guy. He's outside the box. He's the guy with the science. He's got all these gimmicks and everything. He can get us in the temple. None of these others are necessarily going to get in the temple. He can do it. But then we got to get rid of him. We'll trap all these suckers in there, and then we got to make sure that they think he must be the one to be distrusted, and they'll kill him and they'll be trapped forever. That kind of thing. They'll kill themselves one by one, trying to reveal a false that never is revealed, because it's none of them. At least in the sense that false, being allied to the demon god. I think he's false just by accident, just because Nashtania wanted an adventure. I think he knows it. I think he knows, he's the strongest man in the world. He doesn't have any abilities. All these other, chosen braves, they have abilities. They have skills that are almost otherworldly. Even Hans, in his assassin-like framework, he may not have these magic things like the Saint of Swamps Chamo, who can, vomit up creatures, or Nashtania, who can make out of thin air blades, crop up, like Flamey, who has the gunpowder, and Mora, who has all these abilities. He's the one guy with nothing except the gimmicks he creates through science. And I feel like, whoever wanted to trap these 6 braves here, it might even be that, demon that goes all the way back to when Adlet was a kid. That one who just walks up to him and his buddy outside their town. Is like, well, hello, lads. Like Mr. Genial. one of these factions, or all of these demon factions, I think are the ones, the manipulators behind this. I think they are the ones working for the demon god's effects, trying to secure his coming into the world and laying waste to the world, or reigning over it and everything like that. Now, Shtania just happened to steal off with Adlet. And guess what? That works to their advantage. Flamey was the one that was supposed to be the suspect. But when you have Adlet in there, he's kind of like the wild card, and I feel like he's figured it out. He's pieced it together. They were utilizing the fact that Ashtania, just sort of door jammed him into the equation, and now it works perfectly to their cause because, Flamey would have been suspected outright, and he kind of throws a stoppage, along that line because he's trying to save her. He's trying to prove that's not the case. But then he becomes the suspect, by default. And it still works to the advantage of the people behind this, the manipulators behind this. So long rambling story short, I was just blown away by this episode. I was blown away by the reveal. We finally have Ryota making herself known, appearing in this episode, dead though she may be, having been, manipulated for the purposes of manipulating the entire group. And by the end, I feel like if he doesn't out and out die from the blood loss, I think right on his lips, as we cut off the episode, he's going to say, the fake is me. I'm the strongest man in the world. I've got all these skills. I appreciate science. I've got all these gimmicks. I don't have one power like all of you do. And I wasn't really chosen. I was made to think I was chosen, but that's because Nashtania just wanted a, day out on the town, wanted an adventure. And it all just happened to coincide with the manipulator's plans. That is where I'm left by the end of this episode, and I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below if you agree with me, if you think I'm right that Adlet is in fact the fake, but that he's a fake in the sense that Nashtania just wanted to have an adventure, and she chose him because she was just enamored with the way he was, and, his adventurous sort of bravado and all this kind of stuff, and she knew it was the complete 180-degree antithesis of the life she had thus lived. And so they stole off in the middle of the night, and it just happened to coincide with the demon god's benefactors in the form of these demons and things that, they had henpecked basically Flamey, the person who betrayed them and failed at the purposes she was created for the demon god. I think they figured, she'd be the one who would be chosen to be sort of the guilty party. They didn't have to worry about her being offed because that would be the first step, kill her. But then all of these Braves, when they were trapped, finally they would have had to kill each and every one of themselves, and by the end there would be no fake uncovered, that kind of thing. They would be driven into the ground essentially. And I think it just so happened that Adlet was, he just happened to be there, wrong place at the wrong time. And but at the same time, he's the saving grace of the entire scenario. He's the only one trying to prove people's innocence and trying to be honorable and trying not to resort to death from the get-go, from the start, when somebody is suspected. And that's why my money's on him. I think he is the fake. The fake, again, in the essence that he's not allied with the demon god, but he was not chosen by the same means and the same process as all of these other supernormally powered heroes of the world, and his own unique traits and his own unique prowess, his gimmicks and everything. I think that all speaks to he's not like them. That's the reoccurring thing I've said through many videos. He's not like them. He's the most unlike them. He's the most heroic. He's the most, has the most resolve and keeps going, keeps that smile. Even as he's laying against this tree in this episode, seemingly bleeding out and dying, he's smiling because he's figured it out. He's pieced it together. He's thought outside the box. And again, I'd love to hear from you guys if you agree with me, if you think it's Adlet, if you still think it's Nashtania or Mora or Goldhoff or whomever you think it could be. Maybe I'm way off. Maybe it's just going to be completely stuffed into a shoebox in the final episode, and one of these 7 characters will actually prove to be working with the demon god or something like that, the demon god's effects, and will prove to have been in league with the monsters and the fiends that have been holding Ryota hostage and stuff. Maybe that'll all prove to be the case, and I'll be way off and I'm completely wrong. But if I had to put my money on it, I'd say they were all manipulated by fiends and demons working with the demon god, and Adlet just happened to be at the right place at the wrong time and chosen for the fake, and because Nashtadian wanted an adventure. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say on this particular episode. I can't wait to see the final episode. I wish I could fast forward a week and see, you know, if this is all going to prove to be true, conforming to my theory, or if I'm going to be completely just, you know, gobsmacked by something entirely different. But yeah, I'd love to hear from you, as I say. Hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.